Hello everyone and welcome back to another session of Elden Ring PvP and another weapon showcase. Today we're taking a look at Lucerne. Shocking no one, this is the weapon I decided to start the showcase series with. It is a halberd weapon that you can find at the battlefield north of the Liurnia Highway North Grace, and that Grace is in eastern Liurnia. I will have an image on the screen showing where that is located. This weapon requires 15 strength and 12 dexterity in order to wield, and I'll be perfectly honest, it doesn't really live up to the previous iterations of this weapon. In previous games, all of the attacks on this weapon were thrusting attacks. They would deal piercing damage. However, with this version of Lucerne, it's a bit of a disappointment in a way. Not as much as the War Pick, but still not ideal. We'll start off with the pros of the weapon, though. This weapon does have some really good running attacks. Its running R1s cover a good range. They are good for punching people who are trying to roll away from you. They're decent at roll catching, and they do benefit from dealing counter damage with the Spear Talisman. So if you are able to time your attack well, you can punish your opponent by landing a running R1 on them. The running R2s, on the other hand, they have a good wide sweep that goes from left to right, and that also is shared with its one-handed crouching attack or rolling attack. That also is a wide sweep that goes from left to right. And the two-handed version of the rolling and crouch attack, it's not as wide, but it does have a bit of a swiping motion left to right yet again. So that does lead to a few concerns with the moveset. And unfortunately, that's about all I have for pros of the weapon, which is very sad. As I said though, the weapon doesn't live up to previous iterations, and the moveset is a little bit more limited this time around because only the running R1s and R2 attacks, not even running R2 attacks, just running R1s and standard R2s, those are the only ones that benefit from being able to deal thrusting damage, dealing pierce damage, which means that the Spear Talisman only works with those two types of attacks. Everything else is a bit more limited. Your R2s, while they do work with the piercing damage and the Spear Talisman, unfortunately are kind of begging to be parried. They're slow, the windup for them is very telegraphed, and they're not really all that great in duels. If you bait someone in an invasion with it, that might be a little bit more applicable, but in a duel, no one's really going to just stand there and take it. That said, you might be able to use the Ash of War for Endure and be able to get a trade with an R2. That could deal some significant damage, but it would be questionable of if it's worth doing because everything else in this game already does so much damage. So trading a hit, not really the right call, especially because even if you do trade or their attack ends quicker than you expect, you could still be in a position to be very easily parried, especially if you're charging up to do a charged R2. That said, aside from that, the weapon isn't really terrible. It's just kind of mediocre. The attacks, as far as the rolling R2 when two-handed and the crouching R2 when two-handed, that attack in particular isn't really great. It doesn't have much of a range on it. It's pretty short range, and it doesn't go in as wide of a sweeping motion as the one-handed variant would. And because of that, it doesn't really excel in duels. Now, with the one-handed version, there is some benefit there. With it having such a wide range, if you were playing unlocked, then you would be able to go ahead and utilize that wide range to turn around and hit someone towards the end of your swing if they were off on your right-hand side. The troublesome thing is, if someone is on your left, well, you've got a bit of a blind spot there. So it ends up being a little problematic. That said, it's not a bad weapon. I personally like Sword Dance for the Ash of War on it. Of course, like I said, you could always try Endure. I can't talk. Some things don't change, right, guys? You could always try Endure on it if you wanted to go that route and try to trade hits, but I wouldn't recommend that personally. Charge Forth is what's on it by default. Again, not really something that I would recommend for doing in duels, because it's just very easy to avoid. You could always put on the fire one that does the little burst of fire and then that sweep attack following, but realistically, I don't know. I feel like Sword Dance is a good option for it. With Sword Dance, it does also not benefit from the Spear Talisman, not shocking anyone there. And that's really about it with this weapon. It's unfortunate that more of its moveset doesn't benefit from the Spear Talisman, that it doesn't deal pierce damage, and that it deals standard damage. Because all of the attacks, if you actually look at them, they all, well, it doesn't make sense that it would deal standard damage. Because if you look at your running attack, you're poking them with the end of it, and that's all well and good. But if you look at your R2s, you're hitting them with the beak. And your R1s also hit with the beak. And your Ash of War, at least my Ash of War, also hits with the beak. So from a logical standpoint, it doesn't make sense, but that's just the state of this weapon at this point in the game. Maybe it will be changed at some point in the future with a patch. We can only hope that they are paying attention to that sort of thing, especially given how the War Pick does not deal piercing damage at all, and it most certainly should. But it is what it is. Either way, that's about all I have to say about the weapon. We have a couple of fights left in the video that I felt like including, but I don't really have any more to say in the way of commentary, so I suppose I will leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you're excited to see more focused PvP series videos as well as weapon showcase videos moving forward. I am very thoroughly excited to be making them. If you guys have any weapons that you would suggest that I try out, anything you're curious about, anything that you just want to know, get down in the comments and do the thing. Like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys next time.